very good morning to you. Welcome to another episode of Newspaper Review right here on Idea TV, where we take you through the headlines making waves across Africa. I was starting out first with the Nigerian Tribune, and we have on the story that OPE backs double awards for organizational excellence. You can find that out on the Tribune newspaper this morning. We also have that Tinubu orders aerial surveillance of Kwara, Niger, Kebbi forest. You can find that story on page 2 of 26. And you can still see that again, bandits attack Kwara community, abduct 11 residents. State government sets up safer Kwara Security Committee to curtail breaches. There's also the case of 10 kidnapped in Kano border communities. Amotekun commences patrol of boarding schools in Ondo. There's a lot of insecurity problems going on right now, and I like that there are drastic measures taken to ensure that this doesn't keep happening. Just this morning, we heard about the incident again in Kwara State, where the bandits have visited again to, make away with some people. But I like that the president has given an order to ensure that there's aerial surveillance of Kwara, Niger, and Kebbi forest. But I hope it doesn't just stop within the state. It should be all over Nigeria. Let there be an aerial surveillance of the whole 36 states of the Federation. But moving on, we see that 24 kidnapped Kebbi schoolgirls regain freedom. Okay, we see that Sanwo-Olu present 4.2 trillion naira 2026 appropriation bill to Lagos Assembly. We also see HID Awolowo dialogue. Stakeholders call for domestication of national gender policy. We also see that CBN retains monetary policy rate at 27%. You can find that story on page 5 of the Tribune newspaper. There's also kidnapping. NUT threatens nationwide shutdown of schools. Okay, I already even know that some schools have started shutting down ahead of time to ensure that students are safe and pupils are safe away from the whole insecurity issues happening. And I think that's a very drastic measure to take. It's a good one, even though it's drastic. But yes, I mean, you have to be alive to go to school. So let us see. You can find that story on page 4. And there's another story. Catholic bishop once against rising abuse in Sharia, his operations. You can find that story on page 13 to know all about what the Catholic bishop is saying. And you can see on the health sector here in page 27, skin lightening product use is high in children under 2 years in Nigeria. There's a study right now that has shown that skin lightening, bleaching of skin of children, a lot of parents these days want their children to be fair, they want their children light skin. And so what do? They introduce harmful chemicals to these children and they start bleaching their skin. A study has shown that in the last 2 years, that's between 2023 and now, or 2024 and now, it has risen so well. Well, let us move on to Daily Sun newspaper to see what we have for this morning. On Daily Sun, we see Catholic bishops demand end to Sharia law. Okay. You can find that story on page 26 of the paper. We also see that 16 banks scale recapitalization hurdle. That's from CBN. And CBN also recovers 2 trillion naira intervention loan, retains lending rates at 27% to tackle inflation. You can find that story right here on page 21 of Daily Sun. We see UN predicts severe food crisis in Nigeria. Oh, wow. It's saying that rising insurgency is worsening food scarcity and regional instability. UN is warning us ahead. And so what do we do with this information is left to us and is left to the governments. Well, we also see that President Tinubu seeks overhaul of legal profession to strengthen regulation, ethics, and public confidence. You can find that story on page 28 of Daily Sun newspaper. Still on Daily Sun, we have Sanwo-Olu, Soludo, Wifuru and OT present 4.2 trillion naira, 757 billion naira, 884 billion naira, 1.1 trillion naira budget for 2026 respectively. Page 29. Yes, it's almost that time of year where we begin to see appropriation bills and budgets for the next year. But for me, it's usually not about the budget being approved. It's about the implementation of the things that are said or were said in the budget. So let us see how that turns out. Good luck to the states. Well, we also see Dangote partners Honeywell International to boost refinery capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day. And we're also seeing that UNICEF and NGE demand urgent reforms as insecurity Poor services threaten future of 110 million children. That's all we have on Daily Sun. So let's now move on to the Vanguard newspaper, where we also see that OPE again is announcing that OPE has bagged double awards for organizational excellence. We also see CBN retains monetary policy rate at 27%, I beg your pardon, and you can find that on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. There's also news about tax systems. Nigeria tech firm celebrated in US with Microsoft Best Partner Award. Okay, so we have a Nigerian tech firm that has backed a partnership award in the US over, I mean, you can already tell that Nigeria is really moving it when it comes to technological advancement, and that's what we are seeing here. But moving away from that story onto a sad one now. Okay. Okay, not a sad one. I mean, it's giving me mixed reaction. We've already seen this story that the 24 abducted KB schoolgirls have been released, and I can only hope that they are properly rehabilitated and then integrated into the society again, because what they've gone through can be a trauma trigger for life. There's also insecurity, reps protest rising attacks. Okay, we can also see on the paper that Galatasaray may stop Osimhen from playing in AFCON. You can find out that story in 36. Why? Is it because of the injury, or what is the problem? We want to understand, is he in good form or not? But you can find out all of that on page 36 of the Vanguard paper. We also see Nigeria's high-level insecurity is worrisome. That's from Catholic bishops, different angles, different angles to the same story. Find that on page 9. And of course, columnists here on page 26. You have Nana at 16, you have Sariki Fasan on 17, Afe Babalola on 21, and Diabumi on 30. We also see on page 19 that Dangote Honeywell partnered to raise refinery capacity to 1.4 million BPD. Okay, that would be all for the Vanguard newspapers this morning. Please do well to check out all the stories for your own good, to stay abreast with all that's happening around you. Well, we move to the Nation newspaper this morning, and on the Nation we see that Abbas says abductions orchestrated to create fear in Nigeria. Well, you can find out what Tajuddin Abbas is saying on page 4. You can also see judges seek to wash hands of pre-poll cases. That story is on page 27, and we want to understand, why are the judges washing their hands off? Are they not supposed to be part of the whole system? Let us understand more on page 27 of the Nation newspaper. We also have 16 banks meet recapitalization requirements. CBN affirms, I mean, there's a picture of Dr. Cardozo, you know, and so let us see which are those banks that have met with the recapitalization requirement. You can find out on the Nation newspaper right here on page 3. And then you could see Tinubu relieved by freedom for 24 abducted KB schoolgirls. Of course, I mean, the relief is not just to the president. Every Nigerian is relieved, because it threw us into panic mode. And we are happy that they've been released. And we can just hope that the others who are still in custody can as well be reunited with their families. We can also see release facilitated through non-kinetic approach, and pupils reunite with their parents today, still talking about the same story. And this story, there's still Sanwo-Olu proposes 4.237 trillion massive investment in 2026. Yes, there's a repeat across all the newspapers of the Sanwo-Olu's appropriation bill. We're also seeing again that President orders 24-hour aerial watch over Kwara Kebbi Forest. And I have said it earlier that I do not want this to just be for this select state. Let it be across all 36 states in Nigeria. That way Nigerians can be very safe, and they can know that, okay, they don't have to get into panic mode. But now let us get into the next newspaper, which is New Telegraph. And on New Telegraph, we can see that we can still see the story of CBN and the recapitalization banks. Of course, you can find out on this paper on page 3. And you can also see reps convey resolution against Nigeria's CPC designation to US. Okay, so destination sovereignty remains non-negotiable. That's still coming from Tajuddin Abbas on page 2. There's been a recent meeting between delegation here from Nigeria to the US about Nigeria being delegated or labeled a country of particular concern, and that conversation was had during the course of the week. And you want to find out what was the resolution, what was said in that meeting, how did it turn out? Well, find out more on page 2 of the Telegraph newspaper. And we also see I'll lead amnesty push for Nnamdi Kanu if he shows remorse. That's coming from Gumi, and you can find that story on page 3 and 9. Gumi is saying that there's still room for political solution, but he has to show remorse. So let us see what Gumi really means. Find out on page 3 and 9 of the Telegraph newspaper. And we are seeing another sad story here, that bandits strike again, abduct pregnant woman, nursing mother, 7 family members and others in Kwara. Okay, so New Telegraph has explicitly told us the caliber of people that were abducted in Kwara again. I mean, just after the release, it's so sad to see a repeat of the same situation. And look at the caliber of people that were taken: pregnant women, nursing mothers, young people. It's very, very crazy time that we are in. And we can just hope that they are rescued again and reunited back with their families. We can also see the story that FG bans open grazing nationwide over rising insecurity. Okay, we can find that story on page 2 and 6. And we see again that taxes are coming down, not up to next year. That story is, you can also see, that story is on page 8 of New Telegraph. And there's another story here which says Canada names Nigeria and 16 African countries in high-risk travel advisory. Okay, so UK ministers flagged visas abuse and student asylum claims surge. You can also find that story there. But for now, Nigeria is among the 16 African countries that have been labeled high-risk travel area. And you know what that means. I mean, it still goes back to saying that Nigeria is a country of particular concern. Okay. Bisi Akande warns against fury of the untamed Nigerian youth. And it's saying that lack of economic opportunities for Nigeria